Hello and welcome to my home. Today we're going to do a squash harvest, and I'm going to cook the squash and show you that the recipe that my grandmother used and that my mother used. It's very simple and very tasty. But before we go there, I want to let you know that I have different types of videos on my channel. I have easy to cook recipe videos. I have container gardening videos where I show you how to grow a variety of vegetables in containers. I have product reviews, and I have meditation videos. So, it is hot out here, so let's go ahead and get going. Here's the squash I've been collecting for the last couple of days. I've been keeping them indoors in the fridge, but I wanted to point out that I like to cut off a little bit of the vine with it. That helps the storage of it. So I think I can get enough today that I can actually cook. So this is a collection and cooking update. So let me show you the rest of the squash. Here's a look at the squash, and I'm going to be picking off the more mature or bigger ones so I can have enough to cook, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to cook that squash as well. They're all up in there. I'm going to go over and see if I can get any from my other squash plants. Nope, these are too small. I have one more squash plant. Here's my other squash plant. No, nothing yet. Okay, so I chopped up one yellow onion. It was a pretty large yellow onion, and it's just a rough chop I did on the onion. And I'm going to start working on the squash. Now, I did wash the squash off. Now, some of these smaller ones, I'm not going to peel unless I know there are some small ones where it looked like the dirt really embedded into the skin. I might peel those, but the only ones I'm really going to peel are these larger ones. Look how big that is. That looks so good. And I wanted to show you one that really looks like a crook neck squash. That's what all this is. And then sometimes you get some weird shaped ones, but in any event, I think I'm going to start by cutting off the end, just like that. And I think I'm going to separate the neck part from the base of it. Well, that sliced really good. And I'm just going to peel it. And I might not need it to peel this one because even though it's kind of big, it feels like it's on the tender side. But I'm going to go ahead and do that because that's what I decided I was going to do with these bigger ones. And that is something that my grandmother and my mother would do. Now, this recipe that I'm going to show you is a real simple, basic southern recipe. It doesn't have a lot of fancy ingredients. It's just salt, pepper, and onions. But because the squash is so fresh from the garden, it's going to taste so yummy. And then you just slice some discs. Now, some people may slice it long ways, but I'm going to do the disc. Now, I'm not going to slice it too thin, so I'll give you an idea how thick that is. Now this is one, I think I'm going to leave the skin on that one. And that's it. And you go through and you continue to do it. Now my grandmother and also my mother for a time would use fatback to flavor things, because that's what they have access to the farm. They used to grow pigs and chicken. They didn't really grow beef. They had a milk cow, but they used what they had. But I'm going to use olive oil. And I might finish it off with just a taste of butter at the end. And if I didn't mention it before, I did wash these off. Even though they've grown in the garden, it still has dirt on them. And trying to get all that stuff off is a good idea. Okay, I'm going to finish doing that, and then we'll come back when I'm done slicing up everything. We're at the stove, and I got olive oil just barely coating the bottom of my pan. And I'm going to start by putting in my onions. We're not going to fry this real hard. This is more like a light saute. And here's the squash that I cut up. So I'm going to put that in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get the onions and the squash, intermingled together there. Let me give you a closer shot of that. So you're going to fry it basically until it's nice and tender. And depending on, I want to say, the age of your squash and how much squash, it's going to vary. So I'm going to let this cook down. And you should stir it throughout and not just leave it by itself. You don't want it to stick to the bottom. Now sometimes what I do, if it looks like it's starting to stick, I will pour in a little water in the bottom, like a quarter cup of water, so I don't have to keep adding oil to it. But it should do nicely by itself, just like that. And I'm not going to cover it. I'm going to let it cook down just like it's doing. So here they are, they're cooking down. I did have to add some water in there. They were starting to stick. Make sure you scrape the bottom of your pan too. But they're not quite there yet, but almost. It's done. And I tasted it. And it doesn't need any more salt. I'm going to put just a little bit more black pepper on there. And I decided it doesn't need any butter. It tastes so creamy and delightful. Just with that olive oil and the freshness of that squash, it is really good. So I'm going to plate this up. Look at that gorgeous plate of squash. That is so good looking. I can't wait to serve this for dinner tonight. And that's it. Very simple. I hope you are, if you're not going to grow squash, you will buy squash and cook some for your family. I think you'll find it a very nice and delightful vegetable, something different if you're not used to cooking. I'm trying to give you a better shot. Let's see. There. Okay. So, if you haven't grown squash before, and you're not growing squash now, buy some at the farmer's market or at your grocery store and cook it. It's a very simple recipe. Salt and pepper, olive oil. And you don't have to use olive oil. You can use another type of vegetable oil. I think that would be fine. So I'll end by saying, if you like that video, hit that like thumbs up button. and consider subscribing to my channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when I upload a new video. Well, that's it for now. Bye bye.